Why have you got like 3 giant thumbs?
Hello, everybody, and hello, Kelly, as well in the background.
Kelly says hello.
How's it going? How's it going, Duncan?
How's it going? I thought that was just a general. How's it going? I am doing great. What about you? Or outstanding?
So, yeah, we've got a show today that's going to be discussing this 6 month of the year that we've had so far. We're going to be looking at the pros and cons, where we think Stadia is going to go in the future, and we have a star-studded cast lined up for you today. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce every single one of them, and that is, we'll start off with Adam from Stadia Rocks.
Hey guys.
We've got Clive Illenden. How you doing?
Yeah, hello everybody. Welcome.
We've got MM2K, Stadia Dosage.
Hey, what is up, everybody?
And we also have Chase from Stadia Talk as well. How's this for a lineup?
What's going on, everybody? It's awful.
Stella.
Boo these people.
Police lineup.
They're going to start throwing fruit our way here in a minute, so we're going to be in trouble.
So Casey's hiding.
First of all, I just want to apologise for everybody that was waiting in the chat as well. It was originally meant to be 9 o'clock UK time, but we moved it half an hour so we could get all of our guests in today. So for some reason, YouTube didn't update the schedule. So sorry for that one, but we're all here now. So how you all doing? Other than Duncan, because I've already asked him.
Doing good, man. Still trying to convince Adam and Clive to join my clan. We're called the Old Dirty Blasters, and they completely ignored none of that. That thing is defunct and sent to the old man's home. So no, just I'm excited. I can't wait to get into these topics, and I'm glad to be here. This is going to be a great discussion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're straight off. Adam and I straight off our Generation X Retro Gaming Club, ready to, I'd say, take a step from the past to the future, as it were. This is the future, and to celebrate the birthday of the future. That makes sense. Yeah. Or the half birthday of the future.
Birthday.
Yeah.
And we've got 2 Stadia Source debuts as well, I believe. Actually, no. MM, you've been on before, haven't you? Just when I wasn't here.
Yeah,
I wasn't here for that one.
You say thank goodness.
But yes, Clive, this is your first time on Stadia.
Yes, it is. So. It is. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
No worries. So, do you want to dump?
I went earlier.
That was a cross between jump and dive.
I'm all good, thanks.
Jumping? Yeah, that's a new one.
Do you want to jump or dive right into the first part of the show?
Yeah, it's basically we'll go around the panel here. We'll start with Clive. What drew you into the platform initially, and what has been your positives of the first 6 months?
Well, for me, it was and I've sort of said it before on different things on different forums. I was sort of fascinated by the idea of cloud gaming. I tried the Shadow PC, I tried Project X Cloud, and they both sort of showed promise, but clearly they sort of felt like they weren't ready for the big time. There were clearly some sort of issues about it. And so when Google sort of said they were doing it, I've always sort of said this. I thought if anybody can do it, if anybody can pull this off, Google can. They know the tech, they understand in terms of the infrastructure and the internet and stuff like that. I thought they've got some of the best engineers in the world when it comes to this sort of thing. I thought if anybody can do it, they can do it. I was convinced about the approach they were taking. So the biggest problem, obviously, with cloud gaming is the lag and the latency. And the way that they talked about it, especially the chief engineer, about looking at examining every link of the chain. Where is there a problem? Where might there be lag or latency? Could we eradicate that? So the whole idea of, for instance, the wireless communicating direct with the servers and not going via a unit and then to the servers. It's that kind of thinking that made me think, if anybody can do this, Google can. And obviously when it delivered, I was like, yeah, this is actually doing it for me. And this is, it's sort of the perception of lag is not there when you play. And so I thought, yeah, I'm glad I took the leap. And I also wanted to be one of those people that went, yeah, I'm a founder. Yeah, I've got little stars after my name. Yeah. If it had been a complete failure, I'd look a right idiot and I wouldn't talk about it. So we don't talk about it. Clive, weren't you one of that founder of that Stadia thing? The thing that Stadia... No, don't know what you're talking about. But now it's, yeah, I was in it at the ground level, baby. So that's what attracted me to it, really.
What's been your positives? What's your highlight over the last 6 months of Stadia?
Well, I mean, for me, the fact that it just works. And works really well, and we're getting we're seeing a variety of games that really give you the opportunity to try different genres on the platform. So that, it's all right doing story games because you don't need that sort of Twitch factor to it. If you're doing a Lara Croft or Assassin's Creed sort of story game, but what would it be like with a sort of twitchy game where you need that PvP, Well, Destiny 2 can show you that. And then when Doom Eternal came out, it was like, wow. It was like, it was fast and responsive and ridiculous, in terms of just, and it really went to demonstrate the power of the platform. So for me, those have really been the highlights. The fact that there's every type of game on there, and certainly examples of types of gameplay, and it delivers on all of those. But still, I mean, I think there's also the prospect of the tech to come. And the one big drawback for me, was the not having that sort of streaming to YouTube directly, because that was one of the things that appealed to me at the time. And I'll wait for it. And now I stream anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But that concept seemed like a really great concept. And the more and more I see sort of promotions about Stadia from YouTubers, and they leave the link in the description that takes you straight to the game, it's a real aha moment for me when you sort of think, wow, yeah, I get it now. The ability to do that, it's a marketing person's dream.
Okay, MM2K, same questions to you there.
What drew me to the platform within these amazing first 6 months was I was just amazed by the tech. Like Clive, I'm still a little bit from Clive here. I tried a whole bunch of stuff. I was part of the GFN beta for years. I was enamored with just how playing games over the internet could actually work. I'm still in something from Duncan 2. I was an original on live gamer. So to see how far cloud gaming came really amazed me. And I really thought, like, when I signed up for Stadia, I thought GFN was going to be the best service. And man, was I wrong. When I got it at home and hooked it up and I played Destiny 2, granted, I got mine 2 days after the initial launch. So when I got it at home, I didn't have any of the hiccups that people had mentioned. And so what I immediately did is I stress tested. I cranked up all the 4K video playing on everything that I could in the house. And on 50 up and 50 down internet, I went and recorded it on Twitch, and I have it on my YouTube video now too, YouTube channel as well too. And it just amazed me. And ever since then, I said, you know what? This tech is amazing to be able to do it, but it's beyond just amazing because it can do things that hardware can do. It can do things hardware can't do. I have a $1,300 computer that I had just bought a month prior to me getting Stadia. I was having the hardest time streaming 60 frames per second, and playing it. With Stadia, I don't have those problems. So not only is the tech amazing, but for me, it was just a lifesaver because it took away all the headache that I had and the hassle that I had coming from a PC. What sealed the deal for me? Was the community. I started off this generation an Xbox fanboy, you know what I'm saying? And then I transitioned to that, to wanting to play PC, and then PC wasn't working out for me. And you get a lot of people within the other communities that are so excited to go back and forth over stuff that they don't play. And this community is so welcoming and so great and so fantastic and so positive in so many ways that we all coalesced over games that we love to play. So me no longer being in the muck of, oh, you don't have that game, or, oh, your game can't run it at this bibble watts. Me getting away from that and getting to a community where we focus solely on gaming and how to make playing our games a better experience. That's what locked me in.
Okay, Rock, your turn now.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd kind of written about cloud gaming a year or so before Stadia was really announced, and for me, it was obviously the way that tech would go, but I didn't think we were that close to it, if I'm honest. And even when Google announced it, I was still slightly skeptical. So it took me a little while to buy in. Actually, I wasn't a day one pre-orderer. In fact, I think I pre-ordered almost just a week or two before the founders packs ran out. So, it was kind of, yeah, right. I mean, it was that close because, it looked good, but it was just a niggling, like MM was saying, I'd played PlayStation Now, and that was a fairly dire experience. But I knew it would have to come at some point. So yeah, I put my money down, and I mean, the first when it arrived with all of the delays, which I know at the time, we're going to talk about this later. I know at the time it was, oh my God, but it was literally only 2 days. I mean, it's not like it was months, for some of us anyway, at least for me. But yeah, first time I plugged it in and put it on, and it was mind blowing. And it was a similar experience to the first time you ever kind of put on a really half decent VR headset, because you can't experience it until you have it in your own hands or on your head if it's a VR experience, and you have to. And the first thing I wanted to do was get people in that I knew and say, look at this. This is not on a console in my lounge or my front room, as I call it. This is somewhere miles away. I don't know where this is coming from. It could be Europe, it could be London, who knows. And it was just mind-blowingly good. I couldn't get enough of telling people how good it was. And I think, truthfully, even to this day, the magic that Google have managed to weave is still astounding. And you can see it because all of the coming competitors are still not there. No. They're still not there. They're still taking their time because they haven't got beyond 720. Let alone 4K 60. So, I think it was a bit of a gamble, not a huge. I'm not someone that pre-orders games. I don't pre-order anything. I'm quite happy to wait until I get the darn thing and I'll pay for it there and then. I don't need to line somebody's pockets before I get the product. But this was one exception, and largely because of the ability to have the founder. And I guess as well, coming from, and the same as most people around here actually, coming from a kind of Destiny place, knowing that Destiny was going to be one of the first games, was the big launch game, and that it promised the PC experience. Coming from PlayStation, I envied the fact that those guys were getting the full 4K 60 frames and the speed of menus and the loading and stuff. And that was a big buy-in for me as well, funnily enough. And I wasn't disappointed. I genuinely wasn't. I fired Destiny up and I was like, my God, how fast is this? This is amazing. So, I was all in. Okay,
Dan?
Yeah, I have to agree with Rock on that one about Destiny. Obviously, I was a big Destiny player on Xbox. Pumped many hours into that game, and basically, when I realized it was coming to Stadia as well, I thought, well, if it can play Destiny 2, then chances are it can play most games. So, I mean, I waited with bated breath on the 19th of November when Stadia was starting to ship, and when I got mine, I think it was the day afterwards, and I'm thinking, like, I've hinged everything on this console. Like, I've made a website, you know what I mean? And I'm thinking, if this doesn't work now, like, I'm screwed. I've hyped it up since the first Stadia Connect, but I turned it on for the first time, and I was like, guys, it's stuttering a bit, and I was like, starting to panic, and then I realized it was just the way I'd set it up. And I got it working, and now it works absolutely flawlessly. I barely have any issues whatsoever. So, I mean, just coming on to the topic of why I wanted Stadia in the first place is I just don't want to be tied down. I mean, don't get me wrong. I tend to play Stadia in one of like two places, either on my computer or in the living room. But just knowing that I could pick it up on my phone at any time if I wanted and continue playing there, or if, for example, me and the other half wanted to watch the TV, I could move it into another room and just pick up exactly where I left off. To me, that was immense. And we've said it time and time again, things like no downloads, no installs, no updates. Well, visible ones anyway. Obviously, they're happening in the background still, but the amount of times I've turned my Xbox on and it's, okay, update. So you have to sit for an hour and wait for it to update. Then the game that you want to play has an update too. Yeah. So you wait another half an hour for that. And
you don't appreciate it, do you, until you have Stadia? That's like, I'd never thought about that being such an incredible benefit until you play Stadia and you click and buy and you play it. You click on you buy a game and then you're playing it straight away. Yeah. And then you go back to your console or whatever and you go, like I did with my son, I said, do you want to play PUBG? And he goes, well, we'll have to download it because I got rid of it to make space on the Xbox. And it took him 40 minutes to download. And it's those moments you just go, oh, my God, that is so last century.
Yeah. You're like, I am not putting down my caviar.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, my God. Waiting.
But it's how many times? How many times have you been for like a midnight launch, for example? Of a game, and you think, I'm at work in the morning, so I can't be on it all night. But you know what I mean? You boot the game up, all of a sudden you've got to install the game, and that takes an hour to install. Before you know it, all your game time's gone. And I know Chase has said this plenty of times in his podcast as well. There's been times when he's had like 20 minutes, half an hour before he needs to do something, and he can just jump onto a game, play a couple of rounds of Destiny, for example. And before he knows it, the 20 minutes is up. Whereas if he was on a console, he'd have had to wait for all the updates and all the shenanigans that happen with the platforms like consoles like Xbox.
And those updates are only getting bigger. The games are only getting bigger, so the wait times are getting bigger.
Yeah. I mean, like I think Modern Warfare 4 had an update for 40 gig today. I mean,
it's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's huge.
The game's probably already hundreds of gigs as it is.
The whole thing combined is 200 and something gig now. That's a quarter
That's insane.
The next gen discs.
I noticed on the release of Doom Eternal, though, I think they allowed the console people to download the game like before ahead of the
preload,
but they couldn't play it until. So that's the sort of the way they have to get around it, is to sort of say, because Stadia get to play it literally. Well, Stadia's, I noticed, the release was at 1 minute past midnight. And everybody else's release was available at midnight, and it's almost to sort of equal up the field because Stadia has this massive advantage. I remember watching streamers. Yeah, I remember watching streamers stream while they're waiting for the latest game to download. So if they stream a particular game or a big patch is coming or a new season is coming, then they'll set the live stream to go, and then they'll sit there and wait and talk to their chat while they're waiting for the half hour, 30 minutes, however long it's going to take for the new patch of that or the new season of that particular game to download.
And this is the thing. I had a conversation the other day with an old PlayStation clanmate, and I've been desperately trying to get him onto Stadia because he's a lovely guy. I love playing with him, and we were big Destiny fans together. But he won't do it because he's absolutely wedded to his PlayStation, and he's really keen on some of the big games that are coming up on PlayStation. And he was very specifically pointing out the Unreal 5 demo as, wow, look what the PS5 can do. And it's when I said to him, but you do realize that demo alone probably wouldn't fit on your PS5 disc, don't you? I mean, there's so much detail in those textures that it's probably terabytes of data. Whereas with cloud gaming on Stadia, that's irrelevant. So we could have, games spread across the world on multiple servers, terabytes and terabytes of data, and it doesn't affect us. And I said to him that's the thing, Phil, his name. Phil. You think you're going to be playing those games on the next gen consoles, but you won't, not because they can't technically handle it. Yes, they can, no question. They're going to be, amazing bits, but they won't be. You won't even physically be able to get the game. They're not going to supply it on a quadruple terabyte disk for you to play with. It's not going to happen. And he was like, crikey, I hadn't thought of that before. Yeah, well, I said it's free. Help yourself. Fill your boots.
I'm just going to move on to Chase now.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the original reasons that I looked at Stadia, one was the only reason I kind of tuned in initially was because I have always, adopted Google products. I've always been interested in Google's technology, Google's entry into different spaces. They tend to try to find ways to enhance or improve on technology that already exists. Project Stream came into the market in 2018, and no one, I think, at that time thought that Google's mindset was that they were looking at cloud gaming as an actual footprint. It was more about, this is possible and this is something we could see long term. GDC came around, and my initial impression was that we're going to see a box. We're going to see some type of box from Google that shows us game technology, and it was, of course, far from it. And then, so that was intriguing. But I think what sold me the most was we got to June on the first Connect and really seeing the cost analysis behind it. And for those of you that have been, we've got a good panel here that have been through the gaming landscape. God, you gotta be kidding me. I'll have to come back, guys. I'm so sorry.
No worries.
That's all right. Okay, I'll just give a quick overview of me now. So prepare to be bored.
Who are you?
Yeah. Yes, we don't know who I am now. I'm in disguise now tonight.
Where's the bearded one?
She's behind me. I'm gonna get hit in a minute when that catches up.
It was
This dog can get clipped round the ear in a minute.
Yes.
Stadia's 6-month anniversary. Duncan disappears.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's final anniversary.
So when you hear some swearing in the background, it's gone. I'm just waiting here. There we go. It's caught up. I've just been hit. What drew me to the platform was I was an on-live player from about 10 years ago now. OnLive came out. It was my favorite platform.
Yeah.
No downloads, no patches, and it's going to sound a bit weird to people. It's actually, it's still out in front what Stadia is doing now. Stadia is all up to date, got all the fancy graphics and whatnot, but a lot of the stuff which is on Stadia here, OnLive already had it, and they actually have more stuff. So what drew me to the platform is because I was an OnLive player, and it was my favorite platform. The positives of the first 6 months, I have to say the community is the number one positive for me. There's no question. There's such a wonderful community here, and it's just great. There's brilliant banter between everybody, and 9 times out of 10, everybody is brilliant, and everybody comes together and is very supportive. Just look at the panel here tonight. We are all different people within the community here, all doing different stuff, but we're not competing against each other. We actually go out there and promote people, and that's the same with the guys in chat here. Everybody is just so good together. So that's been my big positive of the community. And I think someone else mentioned in the chat here as well, one of the big positives, it is a positive and a negative, the games on the system. There has been some surprising games in the system which I wouldn't have actually played if it was on other platforms. So that's enough about me talking here, because I'm not good at this talking malarkey. Chase, are you okay to come back here?
It's going to have to, you can just go ahead and remove me for a moment. It's going to have to be after a few minutes. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay, no worries. Well, we'll go on to the next topic here, just as I was touching on about the games. I can't even speak. This is why I'm trying to avoid all the speaking. MM2K. The beard I lose my speaking.
Yeah. It's made his jaw lighter.
Yes.
Petrified chin.
MM2K, what's been your favorite game on the platform since launch here, and what's been your most surprising game?
Well, to everyone's shock, because I tweet 24/7 about Division 2, my favorite game is the Division 2. I'm just playing. That's my favorite game on the platform. But look, when I originally was going to get Stadia, again, I, in a buffoonish fashion, thought that GFN was going to be the better platform. I was a PC master race guy at the moment, and I just said, oh, GFN is going to be my main service. However, I do want to try the Stadia thing because you know, the Division 2 and Ubisoft is working hand in hand with Division 2, or Ubisoft's working hand in hand with Stadia. I'll use Stadia for my Ubisoft games to play them on the road. And I was looking forward to simply just playing Division 2 on Stadia. And number one, Stadia became my main platform, period, not just on the go. But then when Division 2 finally dropped on the platform, I was just saying this on my stream earlier. I was streaming it like 15 minutes before we went live. I was saying this on my stream. It's like, it's the perfect game that showcases at the moment what Stadia can do. It has the features in it, the technology, the stream connect in it, and it looks great. It looks great on a freaking web browser. You know what I mean? And when you take it on the go, you get the same great fidelity and all the crazy cursing NPCs and all that fun stuff, wholesome stuff. So Division 2 is my favorite game, without a shadow of a doubt. It's overrun Borderlands 3, which I love that game as well. Now, the most surprising game, I would say it's a tie between Division 2, because I did not expect it to look that great, and Octopath Traveler. No way, shape, form, or fashion did I think a 2D, 3D-ish type old school RPG game would just be as great as it is. And playing it at 60 frames per second, believe it or not, just makes it feel a little futuristic as far as RPGs are or JRPGs are concerned. So it's a fantastic game to play, and the de facto place to play it, I think, if you can look past the price, is on Stadia. It's just a fantastic game.
Okay, just mix us up a bit. Rock, your turn.
Yeah. So you want to know what my favorite game is and what my most surprising game is. The thing is that so before I came to Stadia, what I did for, I don't know, the last 5 or 6 years probably was rent games. I very rarely bought games, so I would pay a minimal amount, sort of $10 to $12 a month, and basically play any of the new games. I would get through maybe two complete games a month. I'd finish them. So to be honest, I played or owned most of the games that were and have been since on Stadia. So I completed Division 2. I own Borderlands 3. Obviously, I've spent 4,000 hours in Destiny.
That's rookie numbers.
Yeah, right. So most of the games. So the ones that obviously things like Guilt, which were exclusives for Stadia. That was interesting because those weren't available anywhere else. But the one game that I was really very excited for was Breakpoint, because I played the alpha and the beta on PlayStation, and from memory, I think it came out on PS4 a few weeks before it was released on Stadia. So I actually own it on PS4 and Stadia, but I completed it on Stadia. And it's, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's the best game on the platform, and I'm not going to tell you that it's as good as Wildlands. I don't think it is. But I liked it, and I still like it, and it's still giving, and there's a certain level of honesty with the game. I still love Division 2, the same as MM, and I haven't yet got to the New York DLC. That's well, no, I've been taking it casually, man.
Oh my gosh!
I didn't want to jump in and go straight there, so it's been. But that's the thing, is it not, about Stadia? Is that where there's so much effort to take a disc out and put it into the console and then wait for the patches and stuff. You can't, you just play the one game. Whereas with Stadia, it's like, oh, I'm bored after 10 minutes. I'm going to try some Doom Eternal now, and okay, I've got through that level. I'm now going to jump into Assassin's Creed, and it's this sort of accessibility, this rapid accessibility that I think is one of, and Clive said it earlier, they're one of these benefits that you didn't even know you needed in your life until you started playing Stadia. And all of a sudden It's like, why would I ever put up with anything other than this?
Absolutely. Yep.
Clive?
Yeah, I think, I'm sort of a butterfly when it comes to games, and like the new shiny thing comes along. I mean, I'm coming back, that where I hardly ever bought any games. I, had the Xbox. I was a great believer in the Xbox Games Pass. I still am. I played all my, all the games, anything new that came on that was interesting. I used the Xbox Game Pass to sort of try things out. And Stadia is the first time I've started really sort of buying games, because my experience with the games that you've got, or the pro games, have been so good that when an exciting new games come out, I want, and the ease with which to access that game, I want to play it. I want to try it. So it's sort of, although I enjoyed playing games on my Xbox, it's sort of reignited my sort of passion for playing games because of the sheer ease of it. So I enjoyed Guilt. I'm a great fan of Tequila Works. I absolutely love Rhyme, so which I played on the Xbox Game Pass and experienced there. So I absolutely love Guilt. I'd played all the Tomb Raider games, but the fact that they looked so amazing, and I played them on the Xbox One, the fact they looked so amazing on Stadia, and I swore I'd never play them again. I loved them, but I'm not a sort of person that I don't want to do that again. That level was so difficult. I never want to go back there again. I'm that sort of person. If I get through, that's it. I ain't going back there again. But the fact that they were available as part of Pro on Stadia, I played them through again and fell in love with those games again. But right now, for me, I mean, Division 2 is a sort of an evergreen for me, of course, along with everybody else. But do you know what? PUBG, I'm absolutely loving. I struggled with PUBG on Xbox, and I wasn't too sure why. I thought it was just because I'm rubbish, and it's partly that. But playing games on Stadia where they're in 60 frames per second, as opposed to 30 frames per second on your bog standard generation console. I'm not talking Xbox One X, which I do have now, but initially, it's like the difference between playing in Porridge and not playing in Porridge, if that makes sense. It's like a different gaming experience, and PUBG looks and plays great on Stadia compared to my experience on Xbox. So I've fallen in love with PUBG again, and it's an old game, and it is a potatoey game, and it's not that smooth, but the jump between Xbox One and Stadia for PUBG is incredible, and it's a great game to stream because it's still a really popular game for people to watch. So if you want to get your stream account up, then play a game like PUBG, and I'm looking forward to something like Apex coming along, or something like another battle royale game on Stadia, because at 60 frames per second, 60 frames per second, it makes a big difference.
Minecraft.
So right now I'm playing a lot of PUBG, so I have to go with that because I'm just playing it a lot. So yeah.
Cool. Chase, do you want to touch back on the past subject there and tell us what your favorite game is and the most surprising game after?
Yeah, sorry about that, y'all. So where I left off on the previous comment was that in June we got the breakdown of the cost analysis of the platform, and I think one of the things that, again, we've got a good panel here that's seeing games across multiple generations, that you end up in your lifetime spending anywhere between I think they've done some averages on this. It's like $5,500 to $7,500 in your lifetime on platforms if you're a gamer that buys platforms year to year or decade to decade. So one of the things for me is that I've just wanted to get away from spending $500-$600 every console generation. It's expensive. It adds up. It's tiresome. And I think the big thing that also eventually got me hooked on the platform didn't happen until getting hands-on with the platform was the convenience. And it's hard for the younger generation to understand this unless you've actually, picked up a Super Nintendo or a Sega Genesis or a Commodore 64 or an Atari 2600. You literally plugged in a cartridge and you're in the game. There's no downloads, no patches, none of that. And that's how I grew up playing. I only knew putting a cartridge in the console and you were in the game. It wasn't until the PlayStation, Xbox 360, PlayStation 2, we can go on and on to current gen, that the downloads and the patches and the memory cards and all this other stuff came into play. It was non-existent. So it's changed the way that I look at gaming. Dan mentioned this, about having 30 minutes. Like I'm a husband, I have responsibilities. When you get done from work, the last thing that you want to do is, chuck soda cans at the television because you've got, a 5-hour download to play a game you just bought the night before. It's the last thing that you want to do. So that's for that. So that's the reason that I got into Stadia. And while I still love it, I mean, Stadia is many, drawbacks that I've seen and positives as well. I've fallen in love with gaming again, and I think that's a real hard thing for me to have said a year ago. I don't think I ever would have made that type of statement about any platform. So, as far as a game is concerned, that's been really surprising to me. It's funny. I bought all these games with the intention of playing them. Darksiders Genesis, haven't touched it since the second day that I purchased it. Destiny was a game that I wanted to get into. Ghost Recon Breakpoint, I purposely bought to invest hours upon hours in that game. Haven't touched it beyond the first 2 weeks that I played the game. Division 2, that was a game that was a complete surprise to me. I bought it at the $9.99, price point, and ended up investing the season pass, the expansion, and everything else into it because of how great the game was. And then now Clive was just talking about PUBG. PUBG, I'm just going to be quite frank and candid, is trash, in my opinion, on the consoles. It does not play very well. It's very stuttery. It's very choppy. It doesn't move fluidly. And when you play it on Stadia, it's a completely different experience.
Yes.
So that game has become one of my go-tos, where I can just hop in, play around for 20 minutes and hop out, and I'm good. So that's probably been the two games. It's tough for me, but I would say probably. Actually, let me go. I'm going to go with Division 2 because I ended up investing more money into that game than I expected. So I'll say Division 2.
Okay, Dan.
Favorite game. I mean, as Rock said as well, I'm a big Destiny 2 player, so I think that will always be one of my favorite games so far on Stadia. I don't play it as much as I used to just because I think there's a bit of a content drought at the moment. But as soon as I see something worthwhile jumping into, that'll be straight back on Destiny 2. As for the most surprising, for me, it's a toss-up between PUBG and The Crew 2, just because PUBG was one of those games when I first saw it, before Stadia was even a thing or a glint in someone's eye. I just thought that's not really my type of game. It looked a bit too serious, a bit too like you're going to be spending ages crawling in the grass on your own because you can't find anyone because the map's too big. But I've actually started playing it, and we got down to like a 12 people in the map the other day, so we nearly got a chicken dinner. And
12 is a long way from a chicken dinner.
It's the closest I've ever been.
You can smell it.
Restaurant at that stage. Chicken's
It's
still
the
running
closest
around.
I've been, so give me that one.
You got as far as the roast potato.
God, Clive is putting you on blast, man. Goodness gracious, you didn't even get past saying 12 before he was like.
He's very precious.
I wasn't bragging.
Yeah, I play with my friend Yoshida, my girlfriend Yoshida, and she's hopeless at shooting, but she's constantly getting third or second places because she's brilliant at hiding.
Yeah. And she plays with young Portuguese boys.
Well,
It wasn't bragging by any means, but I just remember kind of getting to that point and thinking like, I really want to get a chicken dinner. So I had that rush that I'd not really had in gaming in a long time. And where I am going to brag here, I am pretty good at Destiny 2. So it became
Facts.
I mean, yeah, Chase has played with me, and it's like I get like 20 kill streaks plus in a game, and it's just like I didn't feel that rush anymore. It was just too easy. And I know it sounds like I'm being massively big-headed here, but it's probably got something to do with the fact that there wasn't many people on Stadia at the time. So I was literally fighting a load of noobs because people got Destiny 2 for free. But I just didn't really break a sweat. So this PUBG is the only time I've really broken a sweat on Stadia so far. And then The Crew 2 just because like I just love being able to drive around the whole of like the US and visit all the places like New York and San Francisco and all the places that I want to visit in real life but just haven't had chance to yet. And like my other half, she's not really that much of a fan of Stadia. I mean, she loves Monopoly at the moment, but She even played The Crew 2 just so she could go to like the Golden Gate Bridge and what have you. She's a massive fan of like the big bridge structures that they have in the US and around the world. So she was just driving around the Golden Gate Bridge, looking at it from different angles and stuff. And the game's just beautiful. So they would be my picks.
For me, my favorite game on the platform, or what I've played, is going to surprise a few people, and it is Rage 2. I played that when the platform just launched, and because there wasn't that many games, I actually got past the boring bits at the beginning and actually fully completed the game. It was brilliant fun. I thoroughly recommend Rage 2. The most surprising game is actually more difficult, because I think there's been quite a number of surprising games. We've had the Steam World games were maybe not a big surprise to a lot of people, but I think they took a lot of people by shock. But my most surprising game is a game which has came this month in Zombie Army 4. I've been having a load of fun in that. And I love how the game scales perfectly. If you're playing in single player mode, there's not as much. Playing in 4-player mode, it goes chaos and there's loads of zombies. I think it is a brilliant game and it's been a lot of fun. And I've been carrying a Stadia source, as everybody has seen during our live streams. Now we get into the bit of the fiery topics here. What have the negatives been on Stadia? This is going to be interesting.
No, I'm sorry.
Yes, I think we'll leave MM2K to the end here, because it's a toss up between MM2K and Chase.
You're gonna MM's going to be simmering like a kettle by the end of this.
Yes.
I was gonna say here's the reality. You don't want to leave you don't want to let the sharks go first, because we might just leave a bunch of leftover pieces at the end.
What we'll do? Sorry. What we'll do here is we'll start with Dan.
Where do we start? Okay, so first of all, I want to say to anybody that might be watching that's fairly new to Stadia, I know a lot of the people in the chat now are familiar faces, but Stadia, overall, it is brilliant. So what we're kind of about to talk about now is some of the things that haven't been as brilliant, which every platform has these things that, you know what I mean, Xbox had all the DRM issues and what have you. So we're not bashing Stadia when we say about the negatives, but just the biggest one for me has to be the communication from Google. And I know this is probably going to be a resounding negative from all of the people on the panel here tonight, but they just need to talk to us a bit more, and they have been getting better. But we just want to know what's going on. If there's a delay in a game, tell us. You don't have to tell us why, just tell us there's a delay. We have to do a lot of digging here at Stadia Source just to find answers to simple questions, which Google could just come out and say, this is the reason. And I think you covered it on your impromptu live stream earlier, Chase, and that is the average gamer is not going to go digging in all these obscure places to find answers to simple questions. So I kind of think, well, without us, aka Stadia Source, and all the content creators as well, how would people find out the answers to these questions? They wouldn't. So that's probably one of my biggest bugbears. I don't know about if you want to. I think if obviously I sit here and list off all of the negatives, it will leave nothing for anybody else to talk about. So feel free to.
It might be important to still embellish on, because it'll show that we're not hive-minded. You know what I mean? Like we are in agreement that, hey, there's, and it's important for Google to hear this too. Like, hey, guys, we love the platform, but come on now. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think it's important.
Hey,
I think one of my closest friends, he basically invested in Stadia just to kind of appease me. Mm-hmm. And he loves the platform, but he just hates the lack of games at the moment. And I get it. We're 6 months into Stadia. There's not going to be as many games as what there is on PlayStation and Xbox. But I just think there's a lot of games that could be coming out on Stadia at the moment that either aren't or at least haven't been announced. So therefore, people are looking at the games library and just thinking, why would I invest in Stadia at this point in time when I can play all my games on the Xbox instead? So there's that point as well.
Okay.
Yes. No, I don't want to. I just want to add something to context to what's being said here. No one is here, and I know you already kind of said this, but I think, and I noticed this when we tend to hold both things equally, and I know I do that over on my channel about we can talk about the good and we can talk about the bad at the same time. It can be done. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. It's possible. No one here is trying to set Google up for failure. This is what's called tough love, y'all. There's a difference between wanting to see a platform succeed and trying to point out these are the shortcomings and these are the things that you need to enhance or improve versus just bashing the service. And I just want to make sure to throw that out there because I saw some comments today on social media where people were saying, all you're doing now is bashing it. It's like, that's not what's going on, folks. You gotta, we can't get into this. It's what MM just said, this siloed hive mentality. It's about what's right for the platform. It'd be no different if it was your child. You don't want your child going out in the street and getting hit by a car on their bike. You'd want them to be safe. You'd want to say, hey, this is the way you need to drive down the road. Otherwise, there could be ramifications if you don't. So if you wouldn't want your child to do that, and I know this is a really extreme example, but I'm just trying to give you the footprint or the blueprint here is that you don't want the thing that you love, which is this platform, to run into an iceberg when it doesn't need to happen. You know what I mean? Like, that's what we're trying to get at here, folks. Yeah.
I think the fact of the matter is too, and I'll of course I'll wait till the end. I'll behave, but I think the fact of the matter is too, is that exactly to Chase's point is that regardless if I and Chase agree on something or if we don't in certain particulars, Google needs to see a snapshot of this entire community. Okay, we don't want to silence anybody because I may think that the way I feel about something is the popular opinion, and I could be in the super minority. And if I'm in the super minority and I'm siloing the message to Google, the platform is going to fail. So what we have to do, guys and gals, is we have to understand that it's important for everybody to voice their opinions and for us to have reasonable discourse. That way, even if at the end of this discussion, my mind could be changed. Maybe it won't be. But Google has to see, again, a snapshot of all these opinions so they know the best way to move forward.
Okay, Rock?
So I think you need to divide the question into two, really, because on the one hand, you've got the platform, and on the other hand, you've got Google Stadia themselves, the company behind the platform. And I think that the negatives, there are two different types, sets of negatives, really. And I think as well, some of them are easily addressed. So I think one of them that I don't necessarily agree with is the games question. I think if you've been a traditional gamer and you've got specific games that you have always liked, like Call of Duty, Splinter Cell or whatever, Rainbow Siege, then yeah, of course you're going to say there's not enough games, because what you're really saying is the games that I've always enjoyed on my other consoles aren't here. If you're someone who hasn't been a major gamer, maybe you gamed last when you were a kid or, before you got married or what have you. And you come to this because of its convenience and its price. And 40 odd games that you've never played before is more than enough games for anybody to play and take them 2 years to play. Mm-hmm. So, I think it's the context of what that means in terms of you as an individual that approaches the system. In terms of the platform, we know there are lots of features that were not necessarily promised, but certainly hinted at. And, we were told that they would be rolling out in what we felt was a reasonably short time frame. If you look back, however, nothing was ever specific. And this again comes down to the communication issue. And that brings me back to the second part of the negative box, if you like, and that's the company themselves. Now, I've said time and time again that I think that the difficulty with Google and even the platform is they are building something that is beyond our frame of focus, beyond where we have been before in traditional gaming sectors. And But as much as that is the case, and I believe it's the case, it is not a good look to ignore the fact that there are people here that don't know that. They've not done a great case for themselves in explaining what their journey is so that we can all come along with it. And if they'd said 6 months ago, this is actually what we're trying to achieve, minority gamers, casual, price, and so on. And this is where we're going to get to. But we also want to keep you guys on board. So we will have the PUBGs and these other games. And if they'd laid that out as a plan, we'd all be going tick, tick, tick. That makes sense. But they never did. And that's to their detriment, because what it's left is a big gaping hole where, in Seattle or California or Canada or wherever they're doing what they're doing, they know what they're trying to achieve. But the one thing, and I think this is endemic with Google full stop, is their inability to convey and communicate that to their audience. They're used to this kind of agile thinking, well, we just drop it. It's ready, drop it. No pre-marketing, no pre-planning, no great conversation that builds up to it. And that's the bit that's going to catch them out, because they're in a world with the Amazons and the Microsofts and the Sonys, and that's what they do. And it's what their audience has grown up expecting. So even if Google are looking to do some magic that nobody else has ever done before, they've got to take people along on the journey. They've got to bring us together with them. And if they can crack that, we're into some amazing future. But right now it does worry me, because 6 months on, and on the very day, 6 months on from when it launched, the very day when we all thought stuff had massively improved, boom, it happens. And whether it's 2K's fault or whether it's Google's fault doesn't matter. Google have a responsibility to their customer base, and that's us. We're paying them $10 a month. We're their customer base. It's the same in any business. I can't turn around to my client and say, look, I'm sorry, but the guy that I freelanced the project off to's let me down. He doesn't give a shit about that. I'm the guy that he's contracted with. I've got to communicate to him why he's not getting his work. Same here. We're the customer base. It's up to Google, not 2K.
Warning, there may be industrial language.
This will be nothing compared to Friday.
I was starting to think, why is he blaming MM2K for this? But then
I just did. Did you see finger pointing to the bottom lower left? Yeah.
See, man, this is what happens when you get the proper 12, man. Everything changes.
Yeah, exactly.
Clive?
Okay. I have a slightly different perspective, and I'm going to lay it out there. And, I know not everybody agrees with this view, but some of it relates and some of it doesn't. Some of it will resonate with people and some of it doesn't. But we're in our own little social bubble, to be honest. Us opinion leaders. Are we really opinion leaders? We are within a small community of people, and we're passionate about Stadia. And I understand the frustration that boils up when we're having to fight off in this social bubble that we're living in. The brickbats that are thrown at us. Oh, Stadia, apparently it's rubbish, Stadia. And we want to say, no, it's not rubbish, it's amazing. And so every little negative thing that we see down here in the weeds as founders and everything resonates so loudly. Yeah. But if you're standing up high up there, you can't hear the ants arguing. And sometimes I feel like we are the ants arguing. But in the real world up there, they can't hear that. And so you have to ask yourself, 6 months down the line, what do we have? Was the launch perfect? No. In Google's mind, I think they had a plan and what they were doing was okay. And this is where the negative bit comes, which will resonate and agree with many what people have said here. But I'm very much of the approach, it's not me, it's you. And I think what Google have a very optimistic, as Adam alluded to, a sort of an optimistic approach to marketing and product development. And they sort of think, we love ideas, like ideas are out there, let's put it out there, everybody will embrace it. Everybody wants a pair of spectacles in which you can read information on that. Surely that's what everybody wants. That's an amazing thing, and then you get the reality of it and things like that, and how it doesn't quite fit in with the pessimism and cynicism that lives in the world sometimes. And in any community that represents cynicism and pessimism and toxicity, it's the gaming community. And I think this is where Stadia failed. And to a certain degree, Microsoft failed initially when they launched the original Xbox. And it was misunderstanding the gaming community and what the gaming community wanted. And when Microsoft launched Xbox, the original Xbox, it was very much, hey, you will want an entertainment system under your telly. And the gaming community go, no, we want a gaming machine. That's what we want. We don't want an entertainment machine. We want a gaming machine. Don't try to be all things to all people. And Sony said, that's what we do. We're a master of one thing. We're not a jack of all trades. We're a master of one. We have a Sony PlayStation. It plays games. Yes, it does other things, but they never focused on it being an entertainment center. And so there, Microsoft in the original launch, plus it was like, what's Microsoft doing coming into the gaming world? They didn't get off to a good start. And I see the same thing being repeated by Google. In Google's mind, what they've got here is an amazing idea. But what they're entering into a market where the sort of a lot of the sort of early adopters, which is who they have to convince in the first place, which is why I've always said that Google have had a sort of they do have a structured communication process, and we've sort of seen that from last year when they were talking to basically to the developers saying this is what the tech is capable of or will be capable of, and communicating to early adopters to say, hey, would you like to join our tech? And those early adopters include the real hardcore gamers who are sort of saying, okay, what's it mean to me as a PC gamer, part of the master race, or a real console fanboy, and a certain sort of negativity. And by misunderstanding that audience and the need to feed that audience with sort of real hard concrete details, which they're used to, this is what will be exactly be delivered on day one. 3 months later, we will deliver this. These will be when the dates are. Here's a teaser. This is when it gets released. Not giving the audience what it wants in terms of, you know, the gaming audience used to having that kind of regular information, tidbits, rumors, teasers, dates, not having that and being passionate. And you mix that with people who are passionate about the product and feel because it's Google entering into somebody else's arena and everybody else in that arena being like the bully boys in school going, what's this new thing coming in? We feel like we have to defend it. And it's at that point there's a clash because Google aren't giving us the tools to really defend it. And that's where the negativity comes, because we then, as people have said, have to go around scrambling around and find the bits of information to go, oh, see there. And then later a bit down the line, Google will do something and they'll just go, oh yeah, by the way, wireless control. Yeah, here you are. Like, well, where's the big fanfare for that? Where's the announcement? It's just the way that Google rolls. But the gaming community and the hardcore gaming community, who are the first initial adopters, or who they have to convince initially, I say initially, are the sort of people that want that information. And if they don't get it, nature abhors a vacuum. They're just going to fill it with misinformation, misunderstanding, and then that's going to completely blow out expectations, which is half the battle. If you're delivering something into the marketplace, it's about managing people's expectations. And what Google, the negative on Google, is that they failed to understand and appreciate the core, the main sort of hardcore gaming community that they were trying to convince and communicate to, how to talk to that community, how to give that community what they want, and how to manage the expectations of the community. And I mentioned it, I think, on my Monday night show, that, you know, the classic thing is that when they're trying to explain it back in, you know, a year ago, when they were trying, you know, back in, so I'm talking. Google's listening. They know.
They're on to you.
Forgive me, Sundar. Forgive me. Anyway, stop. Right. Anyway, so
I was at the door.
Yeah. So in their minds, though, they have a bigger picture, and the bigger picture is the sort of not the hardcore gamer. Ultimately, it's about introducing the platform. And if we look at the trajectory, you can sort of see there's been ups and downs, ups and downs, ups and downs, ups and downs. But if you look like a COVID graph, you know, there's ups and downs. What you're looking at is the general direction of the curve. And the way I see it, when you take away, we're like a little fish next to a big blue whale, whispering into that blue whale's ear. You know, are we going to have an effect? We might not, but we're up there for the journey. But when you look at the trajectory of where Google's going and what they achieve, if you take a big step back and you say, okay, they launched on November the 19th. We're now June the 6th. It's available in 14 markets, 2-month free trial. You can either be a pro member or have it for free and just buy the games you want to play. The messaging is nice and clear. You've got 83 games, I believe, that are announced already. So when you look at it like that from November to June, you think, actually, that's not so bad. Has it been a perfectly smooth journey on that trajectory? No, of course not. Have they mismanaged and misunderstood that initial early adopter hardcore market of gamers? Yes. Could they, you know, have they learned a bit more? Maybe. Do they care? They should do, but I'm not sure ultimately the end game for them is much bigger than this sort of hardcore bubble that we're in. So that's my view. Nuanced, this is how I like to see it.
Some really good points there. Just to add into that, there, you were talking about the not listening to the hardcore market and not listening to the trends. InXL Entertainment have just released a tweet saying they're actually looking beyond Wasteland 3 here, and their next game after Wasteland 3 comes out will be built in Unreal Engine 5. So that's just an interesting wee thing just to say that they're actually listening now, and or Microsoft are listening, just to push that out there. Chase, we'll come to you now. Oh, okay. Everybody get your popcorn. I think this is going to be fun.
I've seen the cogs been turning in Chase's mind as well.
Yeah, I appreciate, and I want to respectfully just say something to Clive's point that I think, and I know where Clive's coming from on this, but I want to make sure that we set the expectation about what's being said today, because I think, again, not that I think that people have not understand quite the narrative that this is coming from, but I want to really make sure that this is understood. This conversation that happened today is not coming from a place of a Stadia bubble. This isn't coming from a place of us being so focused on this platform that we are the only Vikings that exist in this space of the Stadia landscape. This is a much bigger view, and I don't think Google's aim, to be fair, is even the hardcore audience. I think they do want to reach the casual market. They've made that very clear that that is their goal. Now, what I do think is in retrospect, they have alienated the hardcore gaming audience a little bit. And that's something that I've talked about before, that they need to market to all demographics. Microsoft made the initial mistake when they first came into the market with the Xbox. They were hyper-focused on the hardcore gaming audience. They promoted that machine like it was the next large PC known to man. And then it ended up biting them. They ended up having to short sale those consoles at a much cheaper price because of what? Because of volume, because they weren't selling. So they had to make adjustments in that regard. But I think the point that I'm trying to get at here, to bring it back to the Stadia point of view, is when I know for me, when I talk about these subjects, I'm not talking about me. My use case, my viewpoint, excuse my French, it's really shit, to be quite frank. At the end of the day, I'm concerned about Jane and John down the street, because Jane and John, when they go to look at Google today, and they go and they look at PlayStation and Xbox, if they ask, hey, why is Mafia over on the PlayStation and the Xbox, but not over on Stadia? Now, if we hadn't put out our communications today, meaning us talking about this issue or this piece that we foresaw, who then knows about this, right? If Google says nothing and that 2K fact sheet, which to be fair was buried, it was very much on the back end of their news site, not on the front end, who talks about this? What casual gamer knows why this is happening? This is the problem that is inherent with what Google has been doing. Is it's not that the service doesn't work. It's not that the service isn't great. It's not that even the service at some point, I do honestly believe, will tap into a larger casual gaming audience. They're already poised to do that. And Rock has talked about this. I think their business plan, I can't argue it. They've shut me up when it comes to their business strategy. But business strategy and PR and marketing are two totally different animals, folks. They're not in the same ecosphere. They are not. They are just absolutely not. When you're dealing with business strategic communication, specifically separate from your business plan, those things have to eventually align. And if they're out of order, if they're not in the same eco space, you're going to have some serious problems. Or in the words of Doc Brown from Back to the Future, you're going to see some serious shit. You know, like I'm really at a loss for words from this today because, like Rock said, we should have already been past this point of where we're at right now. And I'm sorry I'm so impassioned about it, but this isn't about a rah about Stadia. For me, it's about this platform is going to live and die based off of how many people choose it as a potential purchasing preference, right? And if people are looking at this platform and saying, you're not getting the games, whether the narrative is accurate or inaccurate, what does that say about the platform, right? What does that say about where Stadia is at right now? And that is a hole that they have dug themselves in since October and September of last year, all the way to December. They got themselves out of it. They kind of got back to an even keel in February. We got what we got from Shannon. We got what we got from the launch of the free tier. And then now we're just kind of at this 15 steps back.
I'd just say on the Mafia thing, in fairness, it as one swallow does not a summer make. And, you know, we look at things like Doom Eternal, day on date. Formula One, it's going to be day on date. This is unfortunate, yes, and it's frustrating, yes. But in the bigger picture, in the kind of continuing narrative, Google and the publishers and developers have been doing it sort of right. It's just unfortunate that there was a lot of, and I agree, a lot of focus around this particular game. It's a popular game. The fact that they're reviving it is looking, you know, and you have the announcements and there's no logo on the announcement. That does feel a bit negative, but I think as time goes by in the next couple of days, and that's, you know, if there's not an announcement, I'd perhaps go, come on, it's, you know, but I could see that this, in a way, 2 days, 3 days down the line, could be Stadia go, oh, here we are. Here's our bog standard trailer. They keep putting out trailers on Twitter. Here's the Mafia trailer. I could see that happening quite easily.
Yeah, but I don't think it's the fact that the game wasn't delivered.
That's what I want. Let me just
tell us anything about it. It's a communication issue.
Yeah, I here's what I want to point out. And I want to end with this because I don't want to keep going. But the problem has been going on for a while, folks. And me and Duncan talked about this. The Stadia logos have been missing from several announced games that were already announced. This is a continuing problem. This isn't, and this is what I wanted to try to, because Clive, the points you made are absolutely valid. And I think if, for me, and I'm just saying it from my perspective, if this was a one-off, I think everything that you've pointed out, I don't know how I could even argue it, because you're spot on with all of it. But this has been an inherent issue for several games now. And the communication issue of delays and other pieces, this has happened already before. So we're right back at square one of things they've already said, or at least tried to show us that they had corrected, that they've clearly not corrected. And I'm going to say it again, and I know I'm going to be the unpopular opinion here when I say this, but someone over at the marketing and PR division at Google, they have to answer for this. I'm sorry, they do.
I don't think it's a step back, but I think it's a drop ball, as we'd say, cricket, you know. But the match is still going on. They're still winning as far as that. But it's a drop catch. But I don't think it's
the problem is, one of the biggest problems is what I find is that if we're not given any information whatsoever, people tend to make up their own minds as to what's going to happen, and we hype ourselves up. Yeah. We hype ourselves up and we think, you know what I mean, we're going to get it. There was people that were even foreseeing that Mafia was going to drop today.
Yeah.
Like they would be able to play it today on Stadia. And then all of a sudden, the news comes out, the information comes out, and everybody then is left high and dry because they built themselves up so much. So we just need to know what's going on. It's so simple.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'll give my quick points here. I'll be nice and quick.
I'm sorry, y'all.
MM's just sat there like.
We've forgotten MM. He's
Yes,
So behave.
Yeah, I just wanted Evan's
He's like I told you,
more,
man. He's like the
because
lion in the Serengeti. He's just lying in wait.
trolling.
He's going to surprise us by saying, "Guys, you've said everything there needs to be said."
Yeah, we're going to start poking him with a stick and all this to get him going. For me, the negatives over the 6 months is one thing and one thing only: communication. And today was another example of it, with the nothing on their update, just telling us about Ember coming. All they had to do today was stick on Mafia. Mafia is coming at a later date to Stadia. It is slightly delayed because of coronavirus situation. We wouldn't actually be talking about it. It would be just a small thing saying, yes, it's delayed. At least we know what the issue is. Instead, we had to go digging for it, and they haven't said anything.
I think that's exacerbated by the fact that it's on the press release coming to Stadia. So it's not as though there was a sort of a holdback on announcements. It's actually on the press release. So you're quite right. Stadia could easily have just done a tweet saying here, shown the trailer coming soon to Stadia, and you say job done.
Exactly.
Even on their community blog today, which had very little information that we didn't already know, they could have just popped it on there saying this is what's happening.
And that would have got everybody hyped, not hyped up is maybe the wrong word, but excited knowing that there's another game or another 3 games coming to Stadia at some stage.
And I don't know if you noticed, sorry to put in, Duncan, but I don't know if you noticed the wording of the Mafia, the original one, because obviously that one has been delayed until August. Now, there's a little section of text in there that basically says they are still in negotiations as to whether that game is coming to Stadia or not, like the release date for it. So it's not even fully guaranteed yet that the first Mafia is coming.
Whoa. Pause. Can you wait a minute? I did not know this. Please say that again.
So
I'm sorry, y'all.
If you want me to find it, I will have to go looking whilst has his say. But
I'll just finish off what I'm saying when you're looking for it there, and we'll come back to that.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll try and find it now.
Yeah. Basically, what I was also going to mention about the communication, if you remember back to the beginning of the year, there was nothing coming out, and they didn't even put out any sort of things for weeks. And I did a piss take of a community update, and that spurred them into action of actually doing weekly updates after that. I shouldn't have to do a piss take for them to actually notice things to do. It's just so frustrating with the lack of communications. Games are also an issue. We are missing a lot of the big banger games with FIFAs. We know they're coming now, but they're a bit further out. But we should have had something to start off before the launch. There's so many positives about Stadia, but there's so many stupid mistakes that keep on making over and over again, which you just want to shake them about and go, come on. It's just announcements. They just don't do announcements well. Sorry for boring everybody there, but now we go on to the MM2K. Oh, here we go.
I'm going to be melancholy. I'm going to try to be melancholy here because
no, we don't want that.
We don't want that. First and foremost, I want to say that again, everybody's opinions expressed is important for Stadia to hear, for Google to hear, and I hope someone is listening, and I hope everyone gives a thumbs up to this, because this is the type of discussion that we need to have constantly in the community. So thank you, Stadia Source, for having this, and this panel is just fantastic. So definitely share this out if you haven't already. Shame on you. I'm first. Let me just briefly go over the negatives in general, opposite of today, and then I'll talk about what happened today, as far as my opinion is concerned. The negatives altogether at the root, and I think everybody is in agreement, like Dan said earlier, is the communication. The There's no need to parse it. There's no need to sugarcoat it. It needs to be a jagged little pill that they swallow and observe. The communication off the bat was horrible. And there wasn't an effective track, meaning you didn't do proper product placement to help distinguish what you want your product to be, what it actually is, and what it is for the gamer. You know what I mean? So they weren't transparent in those realms. I will say that over time, more recently than so, after it's been 40 days and Google has packed up shop and went to Pluto. After that article, it's gotten better, but we have had some faux pas. And I will say that today, even though I have a slightly different opinion of it, I will say that today could have been better if they would have just simply said and worked out with 2K, because this is going to be part of what I think we need to look at from 5,000 feet. This has to be done in conjunction with 2K. But if they would have done it in conjunction with 2K to say, okay, look, you guys are going to announce this. It's not coming day and date. Our community, they're just going to send ripples to our community. How about as soon as you make the original announcement, 2K, we go out there and we'll do a video and we'll just say the game is, it's coming soon or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? I think if Stadia would have dropped their own video after 2K did their announcement, because 2K, it's their game. They have to make the announcement originally. Google cannot step out of bounds and step out of order, rather, right? If they would have done that, I think that would have went a long way to try to simmer some things down. Would people still have been disappointed? Yes, but I do agree that lack of transparency there, the best way that you could do it, it was a misstep. Now, as far as Mafia is concerned, I'm with Clive here a little bit, and people may be surprised, and just hear me out. I think what's happened is we've gotten so used to Google not being transparent in their communication, and over the last few months, them turning the corner and them stuff dropping great surprises for us, that we automatically assumed that this was coming day and date, right? Because this was just the ebb and flow. There's no way we got PUBG out of nowhere. Octopath Traveler came. There is no way in God's green earth that this is not coming day and date. I remember people saying, okay, I'm getting my stream up ready tomorrow to stream the game. No indication from Google though, right? And we assumed that this was coming day and date. And because there was a lack of transparency in that communication, I think we kind of set ourselves up there. They do have to get better at transparency. With that said, we got to recognize something here. Google wants to be a premier gaming platform. And I know, and this is going to shock some people, but I want y'all to hear me out. Google wants to be a premier gaming platform, but it's not one yet. Simply because we're talking about it. They just started 6 months ago. There is no way under today's gaming expectations that we can look at them at this moment as a premier gaming platform. And what do I mean by that? If you want to be considered a premier gaming platform, there are certain checkboxes that you have to have in your column. You have to be capable of being able to have all of the multiplats day and date. You know what I'm saying? All the third-party games, you got to have those. And there's got to be some particular fancy way that they integrate with your system, or you got to have a plethora of exclusives. Those are the check boxes that we see from Nintendo, Xbox, and PlayStation. And Google only being in existence for 6 months, that's theoretically impossible. They just opened their studios last year. They don't have the established relationships. Even though they're the richest company in the world, they still have a marketing budget. They still have a budget that they got to operate under. So I look at my message to those that are disappointed that Mafia 3 or this trilogy didn't come day and date. I get your frustration. But I think if we look at the numbers, we got to understand the strategy here. Relationships still have to be built. This is Mafia. To be honest, this is not Cyberpunk. I think what we have to expect is that as the big AAA games, the Cyberpunks, the Marvels, and whatever else comes down the line, it is imperative that they get those day and date. Something like a Mafia, I don't think we should go through hellfire and brimstone if it doesn't come day and date, as long as we know what's coming to the system within this first 12 months or the next 12 months. After that, then yeah, they are in the stage to where they've been around long enough. Relationships should have been established. They should be able to bring more AAA games day and date. But if you look at the numbers, Mafia 3 across all of the platforms brought in 4 million copies. For a game of that scale, that's not super high numbers. So Google's probably looking at their influence and like, hey, man, we got to make sure that we got Cyberpunk coming day and date. We got to make sure that Marvel's coming day and date. These guys are being lily-nilly about developing this game and making it day and date here. We can give them a bunch of money, but that's going to take away from our budget to ensure that these top-of-the-line AAA games are coming. So I just want to put things in perspective in that vein, that to what Clive said, I think sometimes, and Chase brought up a good point, his concerns aren't coming from a silo, but I did see people say, oh, well, what are the people on the periphery going to say? I'm going to let you know right now, as someone that fights the console war every day, nobody's talking about Mafia 3 except for us, or Mafia Trilogy except for us, because we don't have any games. Nobody cares that it's not. What they will care, though, is if Cyberpunk 2077 doesn't come, or if the Marvel game doesn't come. Those games that are going to bring the plethora of gamers to our platform, that's what's going to cause the heartache. But again, we got to understand that there has to be a strategy involved. We shouldn't expect every multi-plat day and date. As long as we get the big ones day and date, as long as we know that the other ones are coming, and as long as the communication gets transparent, as everybody spoke to prior, I think those are fathomable expectations for a platform this young. And that's my take.
Yeah. Well, thank you for, as you can see, this is what I want on panels. I guess everybody has a different view, and
I don't care what MM says. Just
he's like, boo this man.
I'm just listening to him. I don't care what he could be speaking.
Yeah, he's brilliant speaking, isn't he?
He just said, "I'm there. I'm going to church every time he speaks."
I know. I just love having all you guys on here, and it's just amazing. We'll go on to the next thing. Sorry, this is another negative thing, but then we're going back on to positive things after this. What is the service missing now? We will start with flip a coin. We'll go with Clive.
Okay. The one thing I was really looking forward to, and I'm very laissez-faire about it. I'm cool, because it will come. All the features that they've mentioned, I got time. I'll wait. But on the initial launch was I genuinely wanted to be able to stream to YouTube on November the 19th, or actually it's like everybody else 21st when it came November the 21st. Be able to stream to YouTube. I know that that's probably a bit further out, and I think that the sort of more closer for me is some sort of texting facility, text communication, chat communication for me, because when you get people say, "Oh, come and join my game," and you just get an invite, and I always feel a bit rude because there's no way of really, I don't want to go into a party chat with them and say, sorry, I can't play with you because I'm usually already in a game. But if you could quickly, like you do on Xbox, whatever, send a quick chat message saying, catch me later, I'm just doing something. So that I think that's one of the sort of the short-term features that I'd like to see very soon. But the major thing is I want to see how streaming your game to YouTube, what facilities come with that. Are you be able to sort of add overlays, or will there be a facility to add your camera in, and is it going to make it as good as or easier than OBS? Obviously you need a piece. I had to invest, ironically enough, Stadia is for people who don't want to invest in a gaming machine. The very fact that I've got Stadia and wanted to stream on it meant that I went and invested in a gaming machine. That's the irony, not to have the capabilities to game, but just to have the capabilities to create content about Stadia and to stream Stadia. So there's a certain irony there that Stadia actually forced me to go and get a decent, powerful computer, gaming content creation computer. But anyway, yeah, those are the main things for me. Texting first, and then being able to stream to YouTube.
Okay. MM2K?
The question is again, because I'm sorry, I was looking at what I got distracted by what we were talking about in the private chat. What was the question again? Was what is this? The service is missing now, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry.
Dan.
No proper 12 people. That was just me being old. It's missing, like I was alluding to before. It's missing the big multi-plat, meaning Warzone. What's that? The Apex Legends, Fortnite. It has to have the big multi-plat. Like it's one thing if you are diverting from the hardcore and you want to, go to your demo is the casual. If your demo is the casual, then you got to have a game that they're playing. Simply put, so you got to have that, and then also because you have a platform that's very capable, frictionless gaming. I use that all the time. I might get it branded on the back of my neck because you have a platform that has so many wonderful capabilities. You got to get that eye-popping exclusive. You got to get your Halo. You got to get something out there, and it doesn't have to be first party. It could be second party. You know what I mean? Xbox 360 thrived last generation on second party games. So you need those two things. You need the eye-popping exclusive, and then you need the big multi-plat on the platform.
Okay, Chase.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me the biggest thing, probably, I mean, I have like three that I think are the big ones, but I mean, are you cool if we list a couple of them, or would you prefer just the top one? Okay,
Absolutely.
So I think one is they need to start moving forward with the party process on mobile devices, and I've heard this from several different people. Mobile parties is something that they need to move forward with as quickly as they can, because we have a lot of folks that are using mobile devices. They want to party up with friends. They can't right now. They've got to use Discord as a third-party application to play. So I think, on the bucket list items, I think that one's got to be kind of at the forefront. I think the one that comes next is they need a big IP. And this goes back to the conversation we were having a few minutes ago about, Google has got to be super careful here that they do not get segmented into just one purchasing demo. And I can't sound the alarm, loud enough. They can't just focus on just the hardcore gaming demographic. They can't just focus on the mid-core. They can't just focus on the casual. They got to really tackle all of them equally. And I think one of the things that we've talked about before is that on the casual gaming side, there's 4 titles yearly that bring in the largest gross revenue across all platforms. It accounts for more than 50%. That is Madden, FIFA, Call of Duty, and the microtransactions of, it used to be Fortnite. Those were the largest grossing titles that were bringing in money year in to year end on Annum. So they need to get a large IP on this platform. I'd be shocked if they weren't already, like I've said this before, that they're not already in negotiations with Activision Blizzard. They need to be. They need to figure out a way to get one of those titles on the platform. I think the easiest win is Warzone, if they can make it happen. And you put that behind Pro. And then I think the last thing is YouTube integration needs to happen at some point. And that's more of a larger scale item. I'm not going to be naive enough to sit here and tell you that can just happen tomorrow. That takes time. You're talking about a large endeavor of technology and integration, and that's not just going to happen in 2 or 3 weeks. That's going to take several months. So that's more of a larger scale thing that they need to look at. But I think for me, those are the top 3 things that the service right now needs to move towards. If they get Activision Blizzard on board, that's the last piece of the puzzle as far as the large IPs are concerned. They'll have EA on board, and they'll have Activision Blizzard on board. They've already got id and Bethesda. They've already got Ubisoft. So they basically have already got most of those larger developers. They just need that last one. And I think the conversation stops about the games aren't coming, because to Clive's point, and I think to most people's point on here today, I don't think the games issue is an issue. I think the games are going to come to the platform. That's not a problem. I don't think that's ever been an issue. I think Google's problems have been, sadly, it's been self-harm and self-induced. It's not been from the outside. So they've got to figure out a way to try to solve these three things. And I think if they do that, they're going to be fine. And again, I think long-term Stadia is going to be just fine. But it's the difference of, do you want to be a healthy platform within your projections, which I'm sure by 2021 they wanted to be at a certain point, or do you want to be behind those projections? And they have to answer their shareholders. So I would hope that they're taking some of these things that we're saying and taking them seriously.
Tom?
So before I go into that, I just want to allude to something we were talking about earlier. And that was the release of the Mafia. I found the article. So I'm just going to bring it up on screen now. So correct me if I'm just reading into this wrong, because I think a lot of this is probably just how you read
it's
it.
worded.
But
yeah.
And that is Mafia Definitive Edition release plans are to be confirmed. So immediately upon reading that to me was like, is that going to be coming to Stadia? Yes or no? Or is it, because the way that I see it, because the sentence before it.
Sorry.
Time. I think it's just a time comment.
Yeah,
well, I just think that the sentence before it is what makes the sentence I just highlighted a bit more iffy, because it's, why couldn't they just included all three games into that original sentence?
The reason I think
go on.
What I was going to say is, because Mafia 3 and Mafia 2 are released on consoles now, Mafia, the original one, is coming at a later date as well. I think they're just trying to separate them, because the first two are out now on things, and this one is coming at a later date. I just think they're two separate, in their head, they're two separate products.
Yeah, they're parsing language here.
I also think that it's that kind of PR marketing language that's been run past the legal department, and to a certain degree, the saying, can we just say it's all coming to Stadia? Well, it is, but we're not sure when this element is, so you just need to tweak it slightly. So I don't think it's not that they're coming to Stadia. It's just that they don't have the confidence, or the legal department, or from a marketing point of view, to sort of mislead people. Ironically, though, they end up misleading people like yourself, because you could read it in a different way. But that's the nature of when you sort of run it past the legal department. Who go, well, take this bit out, add that bit, and the marketing people just want to say, is it yay or nay? And the legal department are going to go, well, it's nuanced. And that's where you.
It's legalese.
I take it with a positive stuff that it is coming out. They just don't want to commit to the details and be quite as blatant as going, and just leave it like that.
This is where I say it's like a double-edged sword, to where I said earlier that I think sometimes we put the unreasonable expectations out there because we're fishing and we're looking for games, but we do that because Dan said it earlier. There's not information out there. So you avoid messes like this, Google, on your 6-month anniversary, where it should, we should be doing shots on air, and you avoid situations like this by you being more transparent. You guys, now that this is open to the public, even though I feel like this isn't the end of the world, or my emotions or my feelings aren't as strong as it would be if Cyberpunk didn't come out, the fact of the matter still remains. The lack of transparency opens up these other dimensions that people can just pull anything out of. You have to develop a timeline. You have to develop milestones. And when we run into situations like that, there needs to at least be a blog post to say, hey, look, right now, we are, as a platform, we're looking to deliver you the best product available. Mafia 2 and Mafia 3 have been confirmed. We'll give you more information once the entire trilogy is complete. Stay tuned. Something as simple as that can change the whole dynamic of the conversation. So it is up to Stadia to do that.
Yeah, I think the issue is that they have defined dates for the other consoles, and obviously the other consoles are keen for the thing to be announced, but unfortunately it's sort of mistimed with the fact that they don't have the defined date.